Omar Ta Satt, greetings to you, Highlight. My name is Bella Isis, and today I'm going to take you into a story that seems almost unbelievable and impossible, but one that I have lived and experienced. You can be part of a story that is alive, and that I have actually been able to experience. To give you an idea of why I can experience stories with gods, I need to explain something to you, so that you can understand me if you don't know me yet. I am Bella Isis, an alien in a human body. My origins are in the Pleiades. Although I have a human vessel to move around this sphere, I actually live in other dimensions, and yet among and with you. I am from the same timeline as you, who are listening to my story with excitement. I am not from the future, nor from a fantasy story. No, I live among you, only mostly in higher spheres of perception on Terra. For I am already living in the Golden Age, in the new world we so long for. I also live with and among galactic or magical beings, but I also receive visits from gods. Right now, for example, the fabulous god Loki is admiring my beautiful bouquet of pure white roses that I have laid out in honor of the gods. But today, it's not about god Loki, although his energy is very similar to that of God Quetzalcoatl, I have to admit with a smile. God Loki's eyes sparkle mischievously and knowingly. I love him more than anything. If you would like to meet him, I invite you to listen to his contribution on my YouTube channel. It's magical and fabulous and one of the best recordings I've ever uploaded. But now back to my story. I am the author of the fabulous book series Take Courage, Lightworkers, Take Heart, My Life Among Aliens, which you can easily find on Amazon. In this magical collection of books, I talk about my encounters with gods, and I also talk openly and directly about the learning themes behind the experiences. Some gods train me on earth, some I just receive visits from, others present themselves to deliver messages, and others test me. This is also true for today's encounter with God Quetzalcoatl. His energy is already flowing through me into this post, into this recording. I feel his energy flowing through my hands, through my energy channels, and everything is embedded so that you can experience an event from reality. God Quetzalcoatl is already with us. By the way, I can tell you that he is standing next to you or lying next to you right in your home. I told you that I'm already living in the Golden Age and I'm taking you with me. I can feel him behind me, but I can't see him at the moment as I'm very excited because of the experience I had with him before. I will tell you what he looks like in a moment, but first I have to go further back in my explanation so that you can understand. Anyway, the energy of the god is already resonating with us. The story you are about to hear may be a little disturbing to people who haven't followed my experiences very closely, So I ask you to remain confident that I am only introducing you to benevolent beings. God Quetzalcoatl is a god of the bright side, the brilliant, divine, harmonious side, although he also embodies other character traits. But more on that later. You can listen to this message as normal. Everything is fine. The being is benevolent. He just had a lesson for me personally that has absolutely nothing to do with you. I am simply sharing my experiences with people. There is no reason to be afraid or even frightened, because God Quetzalcoatl carries divine, all-encompassing love and is in Christ energy consciousness. But now, it's time for the story. My story begins a few weeks ago, and I had no idea at the time that this event would actually have to do with the visit of this high being. I wondered if I would ever have contact with the gods of the Aztec or Mayan empires, or even those of the Incas. And now I can officially say yes, because today was the day. There will be more encounters, the tricky god Quetzalcoatl whispers in my right ear. For now, though, he lets me tell my story. It was a few weeks ago when I had a little mishap in the kitchen. I wanted to open a package, but I couldn't find a pair of scissors. We all know this, and I warn you. Oh, sharp knives are no solution to this problem. But it had to be done. I took a sharpened knife, touched the package, and slipped. The blade snapped into my left index finger, almost cutting off a part of the fingertip. It was still attached at two ends. Startled, I dropped the knife into the sink and was horrified to see a trickle of blood running down my hand. It flowed like a small stream. The wound was deep but manageable. I wouldn't need a doctor or even a hospital, but it was deep enough to bleed profusely. As I actually had a major problem with a visible large amount of blood flow due to experiences from my previous incarnations, I immediately tried to focus to stabilize my circulation. I know that this issue still needs to be healed, and you don't know why my soul is reacting this way, as you cannot experience what I had to go through in one of my previous incarnations. However, this pattern is anchored in the soul, and I fell to my knees, gasping for breath. Then my lover appeared beside me. I am already living in the new world, but not with a human, but with an alien. What this creature looks like and what kind of creature it is, you can read in my books. In this series, I tell how it happened that I became the lover of an alien. In any case, this divine being came to me immediately and showed himself actively because he always wants to protect me. He loves me and protects me with his male strength. My beloved took me in his arms, gave me strength and stability, and led me to the first aid box. Then we went into my bathroom with the bandages. There I collapsed on the floor, groaning, and watched with clouded eyes the trickle that ran over my palm and fell in delicate drops to the floor. I asked my lover, "Darling, did you know that this would happen?" He gave me a protective embrace and said, "Yes." I didn't ask any more questions and actually thought it was karmic, because I felt it had to be this way, that the cut had to come and my blood had to flow. It was meant to be and it had to happen. The wound is well closed now, but the scar hurts a lot. It just won't calm down, and I feel the cut every time I move. Even now I can actively feel the scar. This morning it was better. I was busy with earthly activities, running around my rooms like a cleaning fairy, when suddenly I was able to telepathically sense the presence and energy of God Quetzalcoatl. The being contacted me and volunteered for the YouTube channel. Oh, I was very happy because I assumed he would introduce himself or have a message for the light workers. Maybe he could even have an energy transmission for us. But that's not what happened. Everything went as planned. And so I was just getting ready for God Quetzalcoatl, and I was very happy. I was rushing around trying to sort out my earthly problems when I stopped and groaned. A flash of shock struck my heart. I wasn't scared. I was just shocked, because I suddenly felt the cut on my index finger again. For a moment it felt as if the wound had reopened. Of course it was still closed, so I checked it immediately. It couldn't have been otherwise, because there was already a tiny but thick scar. It was as present as ever. Then I realized with horror that this was a sign from God Quetzalcoatl. It was clear that he wanted me to feel it. For you must know that I am clairvoyant. Then my head began to rumble. Who was Quetzalcoatl? Did this encounter have something to do with human sacrifice? He showed me clearly that this cutting, the giving of my blood, had something to do with his encounter. Before you have any doubts about what you are hearing, I would like to say again that I only spread messages from peace-loving beings, from beings who are in the Christ consciousness. The message from God Quetzalcoatl was only meant for me. He wants me to mention right away that gods don't demand human sacrifice, and neither does he. This is wrong and just a game and a power grab by the dark priests who ruled for a while. Gods do not require sacrifice, especially animal or human. Never. He is benevolent and in Christ consciousness. The God is a being known from the times of the Aztecs or Mayans, but he never asks for sacrifices. Never. if a being demands this of you, stay away from them, for they are of the dark side. The gods do not want to be worshipped either, because we ourselves are gods in human bodies. But you can hear more about this in my post with God Thor. Now I would like to return to God Quetzalcoatl, because the High Being had a message for me and just said that maybe you can find yourself in my story or recognize yourself if you get into his vibration. As I felt the stabbing pain and stared at the finger in horror, and also felt God Quetzalcoatl, I was confused. What was this all about? What did it mean? I felt that all was well, because the creature was from the light side. But why was he asking for a blood sacrifice? Why was the cut a message from him, from God Quetzalcoatl? Yes, it's true the cut was made to bring the story alive with him, because what could be more alive than blood in its fresh form? Blood, the juice of our human body, the elixir of life, precious and pure in its expression. Without knowing it, my higher self agreed some time ago to experience this story with the god, and finally fate let me cut my finger as an accident. It was planned and agreed on higher levels, but why? I didn't understand. Shaking my head this morning after the sharp pain, I let my thoughts wander and tried to come to some conclusions. Did I have to pay for something? No, was the stern answer. But then what was it? From the moment I noticed the sharp pain in the scar this morning, the pain didn't stop and made me examine the scar more closely. I was shocked to see that next to the scar there was a very fine, thin spike sticking deep into my skin. The whole thing became more and more mysterious. Where had this tiny thorn suddenly come from? My heart was pounding and I was getting more and more confused. I also felt that God Quetzalcoatl was watching me from his realm. He was connected to me telepathically and observed my feelings and questions, even my confusion. The god didn't tell me what was going on. I had to find out for myself. He was participating in this story with me, but I had to find out for myself. Then I turned my left index finger around. I saw the sting. I no longer saw it. It was in deep. And then I understood. I understood everything, even as I was trying to get the thorn out of my skin in meticulous doctoral work. The message and insight was almost unbelievable, but I realized what he meant. I am going through a very difficult time at the moment. I am going through an absolute breakdown. Everything seems to be coming together and falling apart at the same time. I am barely able to breathe. my being is an absolute transformation, and I may experience my death again here on earth. Before I can ascend again, I must first walk the path of absolute destruction before anything new can arise. I knew this process already. I just thought I would be spared another one. Unfortunately, no. I had to go through a path of absolute darkness again, being absolutely destroyed before I could rise from the lower. And so I'm just passing through the lower. This hard and arduous journey leaves traces, scars, if you like. Yes, my soul has many scars, but in the end, experiences shape us. They form us. Wounds can heal, scars can form, and these then show who we really are. The cut on the finger symbolized cutting experiences that would eventually become scars. Even if the road was bloody, exhausting, draining, this wound would eventually be sealed. It would outgrow it. I would grow beyond myself. The cut was necessary to make it clear, because I didn't understand it any other way. It was necessary to wait patiently for the pain to subside. At the moment of the injury, it was bad and tragic, but this wound would heal and the scar would appear. Through all these seemingly tragic experiences that I have lived through in the last few months, I have majored with a wealth of knowledge. My soul has been allowed to grow, but in order to grow, you had to go through strong pressure, because that was the only way the essence would emerge. Only through strong pressure and strong injuries could you create change. And that's how it happened. The little wound on my index finger symbolized the evolution of my soul over the last few weeks, but I didn't recognize it. It was a reflection of myself. Today, when the stabbing pain forced me to look at my scar again, it was only then that I was able to actively recognize what my soul could and had to go through in the last few months. It had to happen this way, even though it was painful. The thorn symbolized paying more attention to my issues. Often you have to dig deep into something to see it. The thorn was deep, just as my pain and issues are deep. Yes, things have literally been stagnant lately. God Quetzalcoatl made me realize that I had to look. I had to look because if I didn't refocus my gaze, I wouldn't get the message. The thorn was deep, and it was an art to get it out of my finger. The pain wasn't from the thorn, it was from the scar itself. It still hurts a lot. I haven't been able to let go, and I am still very stuck in the wound. I have to let go so that the pain can go away. Quetzalcoatl placed the thorn himself. It was a piece from the divine realms. Had I known, I would have kept it. This thorn caused no pain. It was only there to look at. I had to look exactly at that particular spot. When I turned my finger, the tiny chip was gone, and then it was there again. It seemed partly invisible and yet present, like my subjects. The god demanded more attention from me. Nothing is as it seems. Only I could fathom how deeply stuck I or my issues would be. Only I could see it, no one else. And so I was more or less forced to deal with this very issue. I had to examine the splinter more closely. It was just a reflection of my issues. It was up to me to discover the chip or to make it invisible, depending on how I twisted or turned it. It was also up to me to adjust my perspective in order to see the splinter. In other words, my issues. If I turned it the other way, I wouldn't see the chip, but it would still be there. It wouldn't have disappeared. Do you know what the god means? You could go on about the splinter, but I think the message was clear. In the end, I got the thorn out, but not as a whole. The skin has been opened in order to reach it, which can also be reflected in the issues. You have to open it and act for yourself. You have to see for yourself and want to see. I pulled on the splinter, but it didn't come out easily. It was a sign that it had been there for a long time and was deeply embedded. You wouldn't get it out that easily. You would just have to deal with it. Finally, about the thorn, I can say that it played its tricks on me in between, just like God Quetzalcoatl himself. The thorn is now removed, but the wound is open again. And here, too, I find reflections of my soul. Thank you for the chain of insights that the wonderful God Quetzalcoatl has allowed me to experience. When I noticed the thorn and wanted to get it out, the god also showed up in my home. He came as a visitor from the divine spheres and was directly with me on earth, in our shared present time. I perceived him as an athletic, handsome human man with softly tanned skin. He was immaculate and beautiful. On his head, he wore an elaborate and colorful feather head dress. His upper body had smooth skin that appeared flawless. The god was athletic, masculine, and exuded primal masculine power, dominance, discipline. I had the highest respect for him. But I wasn't shy or even afraid. No, he wasn't dangerous. He was certainly to be respected, but he also made me feel his divine charity and kindness. His lower body was wrapped in a skirt of leopard skin, which is a divine material not the fur of an animal. Gods don't wear animal skins. This material is made of divine spheres and resembles fur, although it is not fur. God Quetzalcoatl wore beautiful ancient sandals that were tied to his lower leg. Well, actually halfway down his lower leg. His hair seemed to be wet, shiny and curly. It really shines and sparkles. It is a deep, very glossy black. There are also delicate gold decorations on his headdress, but not many. It's not about pomp or power. The god was dressed to perfection, just as he was, simply beautiful and wonderful. To demonstrate his power, he first appeared to me in human form, and now he is as high as my ceiling. He is known as the Serpent God, partly because snakes are a symbol of enlightenment. The god is an enlightened being. He is a bodhisattva. He has already completed his path to enlightenment and now accompanies humanity on the path of their own enlightenment and mastery. He is a god of light, although he has some unusual aspects, because, as I said, I felt that he was very similar to God Loki. It doesn't bother me. I can handle it really well, just because I know Loki very well. We are really good friends from higher spheres. As a Pleiadian, I have a lot of contact with God Loki, but also with God Thor. We already know each other, and since I can handle Loki's energies well, I could also handle the energy of God Quetzalcoatl well. At first I was only confused for a moment, because I had to get used to who I was looking at. The god also carries energies of games, tricks, jokes. You really need to be careful when you come in contact with God Quetzalcoatl, but you definitely don't need to be afraid. Although he can be very moody, he would never harm a person or creature. He is a creature of light, but caution is required. In the past he was worshipped as a weather or nature god, but he was also feared because of his capriciousness, he tells me. The gods want to point out that natural disasters are not just moods of nature, but are sometimes karmically necessary to enable purification or salvation. Even now, when there are natural disasters on earth, he has his finger in the pie, but as an elemental master, if you want to call him that. However, he does not act as he personally pleases, but is subject to the instruction of the Karmic Council or direct information from the source. When people or animals are harmed in natural disasters, it is karmically predetermined. The soul in question has agreed in advance to act in this way or to leave the earth in this way. It has a purpose. But The god would never devastate an area as a vengeful figure. No, he works with the elemental masters of wind, earth, and even water, but not with the beings of the volcanoes. That is not his domain. His influences are truly diverse. He is a very powerful being, although his nature is blessed with a lot of mischief, or, well, ingenuity. He is an enlightened, benevolent being and wants to be perceived as such. Our story comes to an end. It has been a great pleasure to share my experiences with you. It has also been a pleasure to introduce you to the wonderful God Quetzalcoatl. He is always welcome in my home. I thank him from the bottom of my heart for everything. Anasha, with courage and love in my heart, yours, Bella Isis Mitchell.